Okay. All right, I'm gonna call the FinCom to order at 6:30. Hi, everybody. So I think we ought to start by saying hi to Molly Moss, one of our new members of the committee. And we got a chance to meet Laura last meeting, but not Molly. So Molly, maybe we'll do a sort of a quick round of intros just from us, and maybe you could share a little bit about yourself as well. So I'm AJ Cashew. I'm the chair of the committee. Have been doing that for a couple of years now. Was a member of the committee for I think 3 years before that. Anyway, and happy to be a part of this group again. Maybe I'll go to April.
Yeah, I've been on this. I've been doing town politics since the 1990s, and the pay has been phenomenal. So I just have to say that's why we're still in our starter home. That it worked. But yeah, I've been on this round. This is my third year on this round of the finance committee, and I love this committee.
Let's see, George.
I'm George Abernaitis. I've been living in Shutesbury for 40 years. It'll be 40 years in September. I've been on the finance committee off and on 3 times. This is my third stint, and various other committees. But I agree with April. It's my favorite committee. It's we got our fingers in everything, and we really got a sense of what's going on in town. It's a great committee to serve on. It is also a challenging committee, as you will learn. So it's nice to meet you both. Nice to meet you.
Susie.
I met with Molly and Laura, so they already know who I am.
But we don't.
It's the mustache.
Laura. Oh, I think you're muted, or at least I can't hear you.
Unmuted.
Let's see.
Try that.
Oh, your audio is not working. Looks like, yeah. May need to pop out and pop back in. I'm not sure, but okay. And Molly.
Yeah, so I've lived in Shutesbury for 17 years now, like in a week or something. I was on the library trustees board several 10 years ago. And then I've been on the library building committee, and we're finishing up our work, thankfully. I'm excited to have that happen. In my work life, I'm on a finance committee for the Forbes Library, where I'm assistant director. And then I'm also treasurer for CW Mars, the library consortium. So I have a little bit of finance stuff happening in my professional life as well.
That sounds like a lot of finance. Yeah. Laura, any better? Let's see.
No.
Sadly, we cannot hear you. I guess maybe worst case scenario, if you're not able to figure out the audio on your computer, I don't know if you want to do the phone thing. I know it's not ideal, but that might be another option. But we'll just proceed, and feel free to, like, if there's
Chat room.
anything you need to put in the chat. Do we have access to chat in this version? Let's see. Yeah. I think so.
No.
Wait, what do we have? We have notes. What's that?
Where is it?
You know how, like, sometimes.
Yeah, I don't see the chat option.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna see if.
Share? No. Close.
Okay. Do you guys see this note thing? Did that pop up on your end?
Technology.
I know. Let's see if that worked.
Oh yeah.
Is there something there?
Yeah, start collaborating.
Yeah. All right. Maybe that'll work. Okay, so let's see, we've got a few things. Hi, Nettie. For those that don't know, Nettie's our awesome town moderator. Did a stellar job at at her, I guess, her first annual town meeting as a moderator, not as an attendee. But anyway, Nettie, I know you had sent an email that I circulated about a potential request for some support for, I guess, childcare at future town meetings. Did you want to talk a little bit about that? That might be why you're here tonight, but just wanted to give you a chance to update us because I know you were doing a little bit of research on what other towns do.
Yes, that's right.
Mhm.
So what I would like to think about for spring,
Yeah.
a request at the next annual town meeting to have a line item for town meeting childcare expenses. And I would like it to be just if we could have an account that we sort of just bring up to the same amount every year so that we can, it would be small. And it, and it would depend on, we'll be doing some, having people sign up so we know how many children we need. That way we know how many adults we need to hire. So we have the appropriate ratio and everything. Yeah, so I'm in touch with other towns and their after school directors and things like that that provide childcare.
So I'm guessing like oh, did we just lose her? You there? Oh,
I guess that's it.
all right. All right, so it sounds like we'll get like a more concrete proposal at some point with a dollar amount on it. It doesn't sound like it'll be too significant an expense, but I mean, I think I've personally have often been concerned about like just how, hey Nettie,
Sorry about that.
no problem. Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like you'll have a kind of concrete ask at some point. And I think I think what we'll need to do is just make a decision about like whether that is something that ought to have its own line in our budget, or if we might want to, allocate some funds for this purpose on an existing budget line that maybe sort of fits. Like I know I know there are obviously other town meeting expenses that get charged to a budget line. I think some in the clerk's sort of area of the budget, I believe, but I can't remember. But anyway, so we'll have that conversation when you come back and have a sense of what that cost might be. But
yeah, I'm thinking it would be, I mean, relatively small. And we want to think about is just the number of hours per year of town meeting that we tend to have, both special and the annual town meeting, and think about it on an hourly basis that way. And so if we could put together, I mean, it would certainly not exceed $1,000 for the year. So we put a small pot for hiring staff and then maybe a little pot also for supplies, because we don't want the school to feel obligated to pay. That's not going to happen. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, oh, go ahead, Nettie.
So 1,000 would be the top.
Okay. All right. And so I think what we probably would have to do for this year is I think we'll have two choices. One is that there's going to be a special town meeting. We could, I think we could do allocate. We could do it as a sort of finance committee reserve transfer for this year, and then build it into our FY27 budget. I think that would be one option. It's probably, I mean, given the size that we're talking about, maybe that's the obvious thing to do. And then I guess the other option would be to use special town meeting as an opportunity to have a warrant article where we
Right.
transfer funds for this purpose from some other source. You know, and it could be one of our other reserve accounts, but I'm not sure we have to figure those details out right now. No.
Sure. And this special town meeting that is being planned is for September, and that is too close.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thinking outward for the spring, but that's helpful about talking about that special town meeting.
Yeah.
So we'll contact the select board about that and see what they say.
Okay. And then, yeah, I mean, the only other thing I'll say is I think I've sort of long been concerned about the, at least what I perceive to be a lack of, or some kind of barrier to participation among, parents or, families with school age children. I mean, just visually, they seem to be kind of underrepresented at certainly on committees. That's kind of understandable, just given the time constraints. But even, yeah, just as participants, I always applaud you, Nettie, because I always see your kids there. But I know that's not the case with like a lot of families. It's not.
Right. And our children are a little bit older, so we have that ability. But when I went to Leverett's town meeting this year, they had childcare available, and there were so many families there.
Yeah. And do they use, like, I think you mentioned after school providers for that? Yeah.
They do. So the providers already know the children and the family.
That's a good idea. Okay. All
Or
right. So we'll come back to this at some point, but
Yeah.
I should sort of keep this in mind as something that we may want to build into the budget for FY27.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. And then let's look at our minutes from July 8th. All right. Okay, I just looked at these kind of quickly before we started. I didn't notice anything. Anybody have any questions for George or requests for edits?
Nope. Looks good.
Yeah, George, I think I appreciate you sort of including this table in here. So I think that's a good. I think you've done that.
I did in the previous one too. Yeah, it's easy because it's just a cut and
Yeah.
paste from them, because you're sending this information beforehand, so it makes it
Yeah.
really easy.
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful to do that rather than have you have to type out all of these bullet
Yeah.
after bullet, basically providing the same information.
I'm always
All right.
trying to be efficient.
Yeah.
Or is it lazy?
No, it's efficient. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 8th as written.
Second.
Okay. Any
Arvin,
other-
I say.
George?
Arvin, I say.
All right. We got to remember. So Molly, we always do these roll call votes in alphabetical order, but of course, we've got a
Oh,
newly
wow.
constructed committee,
Look
so-
at the most.
AJ, you're second, right?
All right, so it's me. Yeah, Cashew.
And Mosier.
Moss abstain.
And
So
Soeto's
do I.
waving her hand. Is she waving her hand?
You want to give us a thumbs up? Okay, great.
Yeah, that's an eye.
And Stein, I.
All right, so minutes are approved. Let's see what's next. Okay, so I thought we might see Haley tonight. I tried to call her earlier today.
I think she's on vacation. Or
She's on vacation till Thursday.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So, Susie, I know you were at least yesterday's select board. So was there an update on this Hampshire County Insurance Trust kind of update on their assessment, or was that at a previous?
Well, all we know is that they voted to do that last Wednesday. So the towns that are members got to vote. I think there was somebody that voted against it, but it passed. And I've been back and forth with Ryan, and because the 20% increase that we will face as of October 1 is on the FY26 allotment. Altogether, it's basically 44% increase over last year.
Right.
Um,
You're saying because our budget had already increased by 22% for.
by 20%,
It's
19 point something.
Okay, got
yeah, it's the 20 on top of the 19 compounds.
it.
Right.
I see.
So that's pretty big. I, Joe Comerford and Jared Freeman, her aide, attended the Wednesday meeting, and I've been in touch with them, and Joe met with the insurance group the day after as well. So people are trying to sort it out.
Okay.
Um,
And I saw
yeah, go ahead.
I saw there was some discussion, I think, from Brian. I'm sorry, Ryan, that maybe there might be at least the beginning of a search for other options as an alternative. Is that
Yeah, he did say he would do like due diligence on looking at other things.
Mhm.
The rule would be that if we left Hampshire group, we would have to do 90 days notice.
Okay.
I've been hearing from some people who are in GIC, and they're pretty negative about that, the restrictions and blah, blah, blah. And what I think Ryan's going to generate is a chart of expenses. It's not clear to me what other companies are going through right now. When I went to the Hampshire Group website, they have fiscal reports, and the last fiscal report posted there was 2023. So did this sneak up on them? Was it an issue of getting an audit done? I don't know, but I find it, for me, the hardest part is because in February and March, when we were talking about this, we figured out a strategy to deal with that particular 20% increase. If we knew it was going to be 40% or 44%, we would have done a different strategy. I noticed that Hadley, maybe today, is having their override vote, and they increased their override to include handling the insurance lump. So everybody's have to deal with it. I don't know that anybody's leaving the trust. But at this point, figuring out what's our next best step.
Yeah.
And that is why the select board called a special town meeting for September 23rd, because the increase starts as of October 1. I'm not sure that we need to have the special town meeting before that increase, because we have a whole year's payment ready. Already allocated. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure I don't know what the select board's process was to make this decision, to have this meeting, a special town meeting on the 23rd, and the warrant for that will be posted on the 9th. Yeah, and so if we have any other financial issues that we're thinking about, we need to be able to work on that, or even the way we decide to solve this $100,000 deficit. We would need to probably write something up. So now the deadline for that is September 9th, because of the choice to have a special town meeting on the 23rd.
September 9th is the warrant article deadline.
Yeah.
All right. So April, is your hand up?
And I don't think the select board is aware that is during Rosh Hashanah. And that's the 23rd this year. It's the 22nd to the 24th.
Oh, yeah. They didn't know that.
Is that date posted already, or is it?
No.
No.
No, so Nettie was at last night's meeting, and she actually was trying to coach them to pick a Saturday, but that was resisted. So the anxiety is that we have to have it done by October 1. But I think if we talk about how we want to solve it, we might be able to be flexible about that date, because I don't think that that's really what we're up against, but I don't know like what Hampshire Group has to have from us, like in blood, firstborn, I don't know. But we already have a lot of money allocated and it doesn't all go out at once.
Right. Well, I have a couple of follow-up questions. Let's see if others have. So one is I was a little confused by an email that I think you forwarded to me, Susie, from Haley, which it sounded like there was a question. I thought there was a question about like would the FERCog absorb some of this increase for participating towns? And so the response was we will absorb the costs within our existing budget.
That's FERCog's response. So
Okay.
FERCog is one of the units that's in the insurance group. So FERCog's
see.
employees
I
are
see.
insured by them. And so when I saw the list of the groups, I wanted to know, our retirement fund people have that insurance group, and so does FERCog. And FERCog's response is that they would absorb the increased healthcare costs in their budget.
Okay, got it. So the question was about whether we would have to, as a member of FERCog, would have to absorb some of their organization. Okay, I understand now.
And it's also interesting to know that Pelham and Amherst they're not in this insurance group, but Leverett, Shutesbury, New Salem, all of our other friends, Wendell, are facing this.
How about the regional school? So that
No,
means
that's
because of
why
Amherst.
Amherst and Pelham are
Yeah,
in that
okay.
other group. And I don't even know the name of that group. Somebody thought it was MIIA or AAI. I'm not remember. So there are other insurance groups. And I do believe Ryan is doing due diligence, but it would be good for us to get back to him if we want some more specific information.
And do we actually have a precise dollar amount that represents the increase above and beyond what was allocated at?
She did not have that number because they were talking about whether they needed that for the warrant, but we need it. Yeah, we need it.
How much do we have allocated now? I don't have the budget in front of me.
500, 620, I think it is. Hold on, I'll bring it up.
It went up 99,000.
Yeah, it went up 99. I'm almost there. 619. So we went from 520 to 619. And now if you're saying another 20%,
right,
that's going to be 743, 742.8. And so 742.8, that's $223,000 more than fiscal 25, which is 43%. No, that's okay. No, I'm just saying that's what this is showing. But I thought it was 44 too, but it's right. We had 19, not 20. 20 on 20 was 44.
Right.
20 on 19 would be 43. Still, whatever.
So, but I guess for in terms of our business, we're going to have to make a recommendation about how to fund essentially an additional $120,000 to $125,000. We think, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so, I mean, do we have a choice other than, our free cash reserve fund? I mean, is there really any other
yes,
strategy?
there is.
Okay, so let's hear them. What are you thinking?
Well, it's crazy. It's new. OPEB. So, the way we were thinking about OPEB was we didn't do an analysis of it this year, but the analysis that we did in the previous year, we were looking like it was going to be fiscal 2031 and we were going to start drawing on it. And I think this is a lot of money and our reserves are getting hammered and we got $1 million in OPEB. And I'm thinking outside of the box, fund a portion of this increase with with reserves, like maybe half of it, and then the other half with OPEB. And I know it's sooner than we were hoping to start using OPEB funds, but I would then propose that we increase our 50,000 a year that we're funding OPEB with to 75,000 a year. And actually, I think we should continue to raise it over the next few years and get up to 100,000. Pelham is putting 220,000 in theirs a year. And
Wait, say that again?
Pelham puts $220,000 a year in OPEB.
Is that based on a similar kind of analysis that is?
I don't know how John does it. All I know is that's the number they've got in their budget. You can look it up online. And I knew that. I heard that somewhere. And so I checked it the other day as I was thinking about this.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is. It is. But, I'm thinking we're looking at $120,000 hit here, 124, I think it's going to be. And I'm thinking if this OPEB fund is a source of revenue. In the long run, it's going to be one of our funding sources, and it's going to be on the revenue page, and we're going to use it every year once we start using it, because we're going to get to the point where the increased cost for the retirees' health insurance is going to be so great. That's why this is here, is to take the edge off of that, so we can maintain a sustainable budget. And so I'm thinking, maybe we raid those funds now and we think about what's an extra $25,000 in our budget with all the other stuff that's going on. If we can ensure that we can make this fund stable, and analysis has to be done. We have to sit down, bring this spreadsheet up in front of everybody and talk about how it would work and look at how it works before we went down that road. But I would offer that as something we should at least consider.
All right. Susie, I see your hand up. I just want to give some background for
that's what I wanted,
Molly.
background.
Okay. Yeah, so for Molly and Laura, this OPEB is a fund that we've been essentially building a contribution to every year in our budget for at least 10 years. Does that sound right, George? Is it
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
more?
it's probably longer.
Okay, there's
Yeah,
a
I think it's
spreadsheet we
longer.
have where that pulls that George, actually I think George developed, but anyway, it stands for other post-employment benefits. It's basically a fund that we've been contributing to in anticipation of the future kind of cumulative expense and obligation that the town is going to have for retired employees. And so that obligation just is going to continue to balloon and balloon to a point where it's going to be very difficult to manage just using our kind of normal budget sources. And so we've been building this OPEB fund and making a contribution of $50,000 annually to, and that fund is invested and has been growing in interest. And there is a point at which we will actually, we anticipate actually drawing from that fund to partially pay for these these retirement benefits that are owed to retired employees. And so we hadn't really been anticipating tapping into that fund until, what was the year you cited, George?
31.
Okay, 2031.
Another 5 years, 4 years, 5 years.
And the only other thing I should mention about this by way of background is there's essentially a financial auditing firm that does an analysis for us. We think every 3 years, I believe. And as part of that analysis, they make a sort of projection of kind of how this fund will grow over time, based on decisions we make in terms of what we contribute every year, when we might start drawing down on this, and at what portion, because it's not as if there will be a switch where all of a sudden we're just utilizing OPEB to fund all of our retirement benefits. It'll be something that'll be more of a blend of, we'll use OPEB, the OPEB fund for a portion of those expenses and, other sources. Anyway, so that's the background on this. Is there anything important that I've left out?
It's
Oh, yeah, well-
it's a state requirement at some level, but they don't have the numbers, and it's been kicked around politically back and forth.
Yeah, if I.
Yeah,
so-
please go ahead, George.
Yeah, I think there's some confusion about whether it's state required or not. I don't
Right.
know that we know that it really is. We thought it was, and then we found somebody told us it wasn't. Just to clarify what AJ was saying, another way to look at it is you're probably all aware that pension funds and being a municipal employee, I think Molly, you're a municipal employee. The state is required to make sure that funds are available to guarantee the employees will get paid. And so there's actuary, not a financial analyst, but an actuary comes in and calculates what those needs are and tells us how much we should have in cash right now to meet those future obligations. So that's like the example of how it is. I would say that the analysis that we have is based on the last actuarial report, which is 2 years ago, and this year we'll have another one, year 3. And I can only imagine that those numbers that we're using in our analysis are 40% low. In other words, if we do this analysis before September, I think I have to jack up all the numbers that were in their report, Parker's report, by 40%, because I think the
Interest earnings, you're saying? Oh, yeah.
Because OPEB is 95% of what OPEB funds is health insurance. And we just found out that our health insurance cost is going up by 43%.
So you're saying the obligation, the anticipated obligation is going to be is going to need to increase.
Yeah, well, and we don't focus on what the actuarial amount is that we need now. What we do in our analysis is just he has a table of the anticipated costs year over year for the next 80 years, some crazy number, and we just drop that into our tables. And so that's what I'm talking about. He's got the annual health insurance for the retirees, and it's 40% short at this point, I would say. We'll update it when we get another actuarial report, hopefully in January or February. But until then, we'll have to bump that up. So that's going to change the analysis, and I can easily do that if we want to go through this exercise. AJ, just let me know.
Yeah,
and I'll prepare the spreadsheet for that. And then one final thing I want to say outside of the OPEB option is there's a bill in the House for single payer health care in this state. And this is a prime example why that analysis that they're showing is actually cheaper for corporations and probably municipal governments now, given the numbers that we're facing. So I hope that this catches some kind of traction at the state level. And certainly when we meet with Aaron the next time Aaron's in town, I'm going to raise that. I think Aaron supports that bill, but we really need to get. No, he doesn't. All right. Well, we need to get him to. So he doesn't support anything we want. Jeez. Anyways, we definitely need to be that birdie in his ear, and we hopefully all the communities that are affected, people are going to start rising and making the general population aware of this issue and why single payer health it could be so beneficial to us. And by the way, living in my dream world, if that were to happen and that bill was to pass and insurance was fundamentally changed in Massachusetts, we wouldn't need the OPEB account,
right?
And so we'd have $1 million. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. April.
Yeah, just as we're talking about this, is there any way we can push back, and how is the insurance company justifying this huge rate increase?
I was under the impression that the growth of the weight loss medications are responsible for some of this increase, but
that's
I thought they were stopping that though on October 1st.
Is that right?
Yeah,
that's what I read.
They're changing the benefit October 1.
Right.
You're going to limit it to people with diabetes, not just straight weight control.
Oh, so you're saying it's not going to be a covered expense as of October 1st.
Yeah,
Only
and
for, as Susie said, diabetics,
Right.
which was like what, 10% of the people who were getting the GP1s?
All right. So presumably that was factored into this,
2%.
whatever analysis that went into, so that wouldn't explain it then, right? Okay. Susie.
So we did know that in March or April, they were talking about that.
Mhm.
But we didn't know, and they didn't know where they were economically, that they had used it. And I remember Gabe saying they were deep into their reserve fund in February or March. So I think the leadership is going to be something. They're going to go after them to pay attention in a different way. The other thing I feel is part of this picture is that when this health insurance premium goes up 40%, the part that employees pay go up 40%. So this is affecting lots of people in lots of ways. Even just that they were going to get a 20% increase in their premium part was significant. Now it's 44. The other aspect of this is we might get pushback because only 50% of the 20% was covered in our budget by taxes. So we already chose to use 20%, 50%, it was $50,000 out of cash reserves. I think that was a wise decision, but now in light of where we are, I don't know if we should figure out what would be the tax increase to cover some of this, because if we use OPEB or if we use cash reserves and it rolls into FY 27, we have a pretty big hole. And some people may react to that at town meeting. We still can make the best financial recommendation that we can, but we have to look at it as a whole at this point.
A good point.
Laura, I see your hand up. I also see a question from you. I think that's from you, right? In the note.
Yeah, that's for me. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you now. Great. Yeah.
Okay.
been restored.
Yeah, so I mean, I know there's kind of the aspect of, I mean, like the actuarial, kind of projecting probably low on costs, but I mean, like I feel like a lot of the boards like I've been sitting on elsewhere, I mean, we've been having greater interest returns like the last few years than we had predicted. So I mean, it's not going to fill the entire gap, but that may get us at least some piece of it.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say about that is I remember we had a conversation when the last report was prepared, and I think there was some thought that the estimates were pretty conservative, and maybe unnecessarily so on the anticipated interest earnings.
Yes, they do. They actually, in the actual report, do provide a reinvestment rate. I think it's 5.65 that we're using.
That sounds right.
And it is in our analysis. So we do that $1 million that we're at now. I think it's 1,014,000. We're adding 5.65% of that, and we roll it each year, and we're always increasing. So when you see the OPEB model, you'll see that is being considered, and you'll see how it affects it. So we'll all understand it much better.
Susie?
And municipalities are restricted for the way they can invest money. It's a more conservative model. So although some people were complaining about their conservative investments, that's the law.
Yeah, the treasurer has restrictions.
Yes.
Susie, real quickly, while I'm thinking of it, what was the name? Who's our insurance? It's the Hampshire Insurance Corporation?
Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust.
Group Insurance Trust. Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to ask my colleagues on this fiscal sustainability group from Amherst and Pelham about what kinds of increases their plan has required for this budget year, and if they've had anything similar, like an updated request, unless somebody here has that information already. Okay, so and if I heard it correctly, it's both Amherst and Pelham that are on this other group plan, not the trust that we are. Okay, so I'll ask them, see if I can learn anything about what their increases were for FY26. Okay, so in terms of like, I guess without having a concrete number, and I don't think there's an action for us to take tonight, but I think we probably ought to think about at least, I think there are sort of three options that have come up during this conversation for how we're going to fund this shortfall. One would be just straight free cash transfer that gets voted on at special town meeting in September. Option two would be to split the increase between a free cash reserve transfer and a transfer from our OPEB fund. This is what George was suggesting as a possibility. And then I guess there's a third option, which would be to modify the operating budget that was approved at annual town meeting, right? That's an option that's available to us, right? If we wanted to actually increase the the insurance budget line, and obviously that would have a corresponding impact on the estimated tax rate, but and the amount of
Yes.
Either the amount of levy required or the amount of excess levy capacity we use. But like we're gonna have to do, we would have to do something, right? So I guess that would be a third option that is potentially available to us, right?
Yeah, I would
George,
just say about that, April, tomorrow we should check with Leslie and make sure that we don't have an issue with, clogging up or affecting their timeline. I think that's plenty of time at that point before
Right.
the recap is done and the tax rate is figured, but we certainly should make sure that the assessor's office is aware that we're talking about this.
Interesting.
Okay. Next, Susie.
I think we need some professional advice on this.
Mhm.
And we know that Becky might be able to answer this question, because what is the process for going back into the the budget that was passed at annual town meeting? That all has to happen by June 30. So I don't know what it looks like to use some tax increase. I think we should probably get that information right away.
Yeah.
Because another option is to do all three, to use a little of this, a little of that.
Yeah.
And I think that would make people feel that we are balancing issues if we try to do a little of this, a little of that. If we raise taxes, that affects the people who are paying their insurance premium increase. And George has generated the chart that says if we want to raise this much cash or this much money for our budget, this is what be the tax impact. But I think because we're looking at FY27, we might need to think a little bit about the tax increase. But I want somebody like Becky who would know what that process is.
Yeah. I mean, because there's something that makes me uncomfortable about the idea of having our budget passed at a special town meeting, which we know is going to have a fraction of the representation as an annual town
Right.
meeting.
It might not even be allowed. I'm not sure. That's why I feel like
Yeah, right. Even if it is allowed, though, I'm
I
not
think
sure
it is allowed.
I'm not sure it's a great precedent.
You
Right?
do or don't, George?
I do think it's allowed because
Okay.
if we have a special town meeting before you can adjust your budget with a special town meeting. We've done it before.
This is huge.
Mhm.
This is huge, but the point about sustainability, and to some extent, we probably do need to increase the taxes. I mean, we'll ask Leslie tomorrow. She might know. I don't think Haley will be there, unfortunately. Asking Becky is certainly not a bad idea.
I'll take that
Okay.
initiative.
Great, thank you. All right. Yeah, it would be good to know. It sounds from what George is saying that it's probably something we've done in the past. I'd be curious what the context was for doing.
I know we've
Actually,
spent,
I'll have to think about that. I should
yeah,
put my
we
money
spent
where
cash reserves at
Yeah,
special
all
town
the
meeting.
time, right?
I
Yeah.
don't,
well, we use cash reserves. That's true, but
right.
And we increased operating budget lines. But if the tax rate hasn't been set yet, and
Oh,
you know,
okay.
I think then there's still time to do it.
Okay.
I'll check with Leslie tomorrow. I don't think David's around anymore, so hopefully Leslie will have the answer. If not, Haley's going to have to research it, or another question for Becky. Well, that's the question you were going to ask Becky. So,
Or maybe Donna, is it a legal question?
actually, probably the person that. Yeah, it's the assessors. The assessors are the ones who should know.
Yeah. So see what you can find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really.
Okay. All right. But those, it sounds like it's some mix of those three sources, right? I mean, there's nothing.
And there's FinCom reserve too. I mean, you could take nickels and dimes from here and there, and cash reserves 40, FinCom reserve 20,
Yeah.
and I'll put it as cash reserves in the minutes, but that's not out of the realm of
Well,
options.
we're going to talk in a minute about end of year FY25 transfers, and it sounds like our FinCom reserves are going to potentially get tapped by a pretty large amount. We'll get to that if you
50 for fiscal 27?
no.
6.
25,
26?
25.
It's 25, so this is end of year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but we'll get to that. Actually, I think that is the next. That is the next item. All right. So, any other discussion about the increase in the increased assessment for insurance before we move on? No. Okay. All right. So let me pull up. I got. Was actually kind of curious about this. I got an email from Haley last week about the final proposed reserve transfers. Let's see, where is that? Just had that. Oh, here, yeah. Okay. And it sounds like this may have been discussed. No, this wasn't last night's select board. This was the one before, July 29th. Okay, let me share this. All right. So this is what Haley sent me, and this is a little bit of a different process. It sounds, because I think usually these end of year transfers sort of start with us, and then we sort of make a proposal about how to transfer funds from one account to another for these overdrawn accounts, and then it goes to the select board. But in this case, it looks like they actually took this up. So maybe you guys can kind of interpret this with me. I spent a few minutes looking at this earlier today, and I think what it's showing us is there are 5 expenses on this left-hand side that are essentially need to be accounted for because those lines have been expended for FY25. So highway materials, and then legal, which we knew was coming. And all of that totals $11,819.24. And they've proposed to essentially transfer those from these 5 lines: highway superintendent, sanitary landfill, select board, secretary, town administrator, land use clerk. Okay, so I guess these are the amounts that are coming from each of these lines. Okay, that's my reading of that. But then there are these 3, one of which is a huge whopper. There are these other 3 lines that are overspent. And I did confirm, I looked at the last expense report, and these match what's there. At least the snow wages and snow expenses match what's in the last expense report. And it sounds like they made the decision or recommendation to transfer those from the FinCom reserve fund. So those actually total $35,801.89. So total between those 2 kind of categories is $47,621.13. And this I was told in this email is the final
For fiscal 26.
yeah, the final year end, transfer that needs to happen. But so I was a little, like, I have to say, I was a little surprised to see this, and maybe it's a function of just timing, and but I was a little surprised to see the select board to sort of like take action on a transfer from the FinCom reserve fund. Like, it usually happens the other way around. I don't know whether that's
Yeah, it's
not-
ours
yeah.
to approve, not
Yeah.
theirs.
yes.
Right.
But I mean, I guess I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and imagine that what they were discussing was, well, let's preemptively approve this, and but obviously it'll be pending approval.
Yeah, contingent on us completing it.
Yeah, and obviously we're gonna have to take action on this tonight, but I'm not sure. Like, I think the 11,819, like, those seem pretty straightforward. I'm assuming those are based on recommendations from our accountant. So I see those as pretty non-controversial. Question is do we want to is this how we want to deal with the snow expense in particular? So George, what do you? I see your
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's controversial. I think basically what they're doing is they have 47,000 plus in expenses that they need to cover. They know the FinCom balance is 35,801. And so they funded as much as they could with the reserve fund, and now they have 11,008. They're just picking funds within the budget that have excesses to cover that. So to me, this makes complete sense.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
And
just
the thing is,
unusual.
just one other note, if we don't fund the snow expense and snow wages, which we don't have to
Right.
cover at year end, that's going to roll into the tax rate next year, and it's going to end up increasing the tax rate because it will have to be funded.
I don't think we want to do that.
So by doing
guess-
this, we're actually, keeping it out of the tax rate.
All right, so I guess the implication for our reserve fund is that we won't have anything roll over from FY25.
No.
And so we would essentially have, is it 80,000 or 75? I can't remember.
I think it was 85.
Oh, is it 80?
Yeah, because we upped it. I'll tell you, because we upped it at special town meeting last year.
Let's see.
And we brought it up to where am I?
I think we upped it from 75 to 80. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Okay.
By
Right.
25, and then we have the same.
You're right. I see the same thing. Yep.
All right. So I guess that's what we would be dealing with for FY26, is we would have our normal $80,000 to utilize. Susie?
I am not clear on the process George said. I thought that snow wages and stuff, the recap sheet, they took it out of whatever free cash was there. I didn't think it showed up in the tax rate.
Hmm.
Okay. I can check with Leslie tomorrow.
But that, you know what, actually, that's why I don't really like that the select board did this without talking to us, because we'd want to talk about it. And if it just comes out of free cash before they certify the free cash, that's okay, that would work. I guess it doesn't matter if it comes out of the rest of the reserve fund, because that would just be going to free cash, so it's
Right.
just
It's just a wash.
just a wash. But I guess I feel like we are in a time when the process of doing town administration is not very developed yet. It's not very informed, and in order for people to know things, they really need to talk with each other and make sure that we're getting the advice we need. And I feel like this kind of action doesn't make that clear to me that that's what they did. Maybe that is what they did, but it's not clear to me.
George?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the 11,000 portion of this, the 11,810, whatever that number is, historically, FinCom and Select Board were in the same room together because, and we voted at the same time because to do line item transfers, which the 11,000 is, both committees have to approve them. So we always had that communication. I think that's a conversation we should have with Haley and for the future. I'm okay signing this now, but I think Susie's point is important. We should sit with them and everybody should hear the same story at the same time.
Yeah, I had forgotten that. You're right, George. We used to have a joint meeting where we would do these transfers, right?
Always. Yeah, that was historically what we did. And I think maybe we just lost that because Haley's not, doesn't have that.
Well, I think it's partially that too, but I think the other difference this year is that these year-end transfer requests have been coming in sort of dribs and drabs, like as opposed to, I think in the past, we had one joint meeting where we dealt with all of them at one time. And whereas this time, I think this will now be the third meeting where we've discussed, a year-end transfer, probably based on whatever bills, Gail is having to pay, right? And so so I think I ought to probably do a couple things. One is I think maybe I should have a conversation with Rita as well as Haley, and kind of update her on whatever action we take now about this, but also suggest that we go back to that routine, that process where we have a joint meeting in July or early August, whatever the appropriate time is, and we deal with all of the end of year needed transfers in one shot. We discuss them together, both committees vote, and we deal with it that way. All right, Susie?
And I think that it's very possible that Haley did not know about chasing this all down and getting it all together as the year began to end and get it into one form. And that's going to be true for a while, that if she's not done it before, she probably didn't know to be looking in this direction. So, we're hoping that next year she'll have gotten through some of the firsts and have this together. But the idea that it didn't get talked at a joint meeting is more on the select board, and that we want it to be a joint meeting, and maybe that would help focus these expenses to be all gathered together instead of 3 different times. I'm also going to complain that the legal fund is significant, and it, when they talked at annual town meeting, they did not have these kind of numbers in front of us, and I think that matters. So I'm going to just complain about that.
Okay. All right. Well, so I guess for the purpose of this batch, I'll make a motion to approve. How should I say this? To approve the series of transfers, line-to-line transfers, and transfers from the FinCom Reserve Fund as detailed on this form.
Second.
I'll second that.
I have just one
Yes,
question.
April. Yeah.
Is that we don't have any of the figures there about the highway superintendent, the line items that they chose. And how are we sure about the accuracy for the source of the funds?
So I believe we do have them. So in other words,
Where are
what
they?
I see here is that,
But how?
It's the middle section.
Okay, no, I
so for this 1,556,
right. No,
that's coming from the highway superintendent.
And are these numbers verified? Did this go through our accountant?
I believe that, I mean, at least the first 2 rounds of this that we've discussed, they came from Gail. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think she prepared.
Well, I would say 2 things. Yeah, I'm sure Gail prepared it, but even if she didn't, if they're not right, Gail's going to catch it and she's going to make us think about it. she's going to
Right.
stop it from happening if these funds are not available in these
Right.
source funds. And so we'll find out. So I expect that this has already been vetted.
Molly.
Yeah, so we're assuming then that the highway superintendent fund has an excess of the $1,500 in it and no more. And that's why that amount is coming up.
Well, it may have more, and we can actually, let me pull up,
It could have more, but
Yeah.
probably it doesn't because the numbers so
Precise.
distinct.
Well, we hired a new highway superintendent at
Yeah.
a lower salary.
So I'm gonna actually pull up, let's see.
Moved.
Yeah, it moved, right? Budget and expenses. So
It's under town government
I see it. Okay.
in the drop-down menu.
Yeah, I'm gonna share a different document. So, actually, maybe I should show this to everybody in case they don't know. Okay, so. All right. So there on the Shutesbury government website, there is a page. It's under town governance. No, yes, budget and expenses. And our accountant pulls up, I'm sorry, posts the periodically the most recent expense reports on here. And so what we're going to look at is the last FY25 one. And so you'll see here, for example,
It's only through the
No.
15th.
so you'll see here, yeah, it is through the, I guess, but it does, the numbers do show. So you'll see here the snow removal expenses, for example, was, according to the last expense report that's been posted, was overspent by $32,674. That's the number that's has been proposed to transfer from our FinCom reserve funds. So we can see that the highway superintendent line is underspent by $6,935.
But that could be
Yeah,
You think that's 2 weeks?
short on
the last payroll may not be in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's possible. So there isn't right now an
vetting.
expense report that's like through June 30th.
Right.
So you're right. But I guess to answer your question, Molly, all we should assume right now is that there's available budget in for those lines that are used as the sources for these end of year transfers. That but there may still be some additional unspent amounts to those lines, which would typically for most of our lines in our budget would then roll over into free cash.
Okay.
Okay, so are there any other questions about, we've got a motion on the floor to approve these end of year transfers? Any other discussion or questions about that? Okay, George?
Overnight aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Moss, I.
Soito, aye.
Stein, aye.
Okay. All right, so I think we will have to sign, or at least a quorum of us will have to stop by town hall to sign that form that we had up on the screen. So I'm guessing it's already there since the select board's already signed it. Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda is an update on this school finance sustainability group. So I don't know what to say here. Okay, so this is already not off to a great start. I'll just say that. So I think sort of key updates for me to share are that as part of this sort of background and the process here, the district has actually contracted this organization called MARS, which is the Massachusetts Association of Regional School Committees, I think, or something, or regional district, I don't know, something along those lines. And they provide a service. Actually, while we're talking about this, I can pull up a sample. And, where they basically, on behalf of a district, will do some analysis on essentially sort of like the fiscal status of the member towns for a regional school district. I think they also may do this for sort of single, districts that are not regional districts. And so let's see, I think right, I may have to forward it to you, but they okay, yeah, here it is. So the superintendent shared a sample report from the town of Mendon. All right, so I'm going to share that just so you could sort of see what it looks like. All right, so it's the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools. Okay, and basically, I think, this, what Mars does is they kind of tap the, I guess, the DOR database and, look at available data and from DESE, and they, provide essentially a bunch of tables and some historical information. You can see excess levy capacity, override capacity, free cash balances, stabilization balances, municipal budgets, in this case for 10 years, what, for a variety of categories. And then DESE data on enrollment.
Can you forward that to us, AJ?
Yeah, I'm going to forward. I will. Yeah.
So far, what you're showing us is information we all have.
Right.
Exactly. So here's the thing. So I think the superintendent was kind of keen on having Mars kind of maybe as a sort of an independent group. Maybe her thinking is that, this is, even though this is like publicly available information, there'll be a sort of, I don't know, some kind of credibility, having this come from, a third party. I'm not sure what the exact thinking is, but this group, which happens to have like this 4 towns group that has been meeting and has been planning and has been trying to sort of start this kind of process that would begin in August. The group has a few data nerds that are like already a part of these conversations that are happening, and like they were sort of feeling like this was not anything particularly special that Mars was offering to provide, and that in fact they were starting to pull a lot of this data, and in some cases like better, more comprehensive data. I'll show you a table that let's see. Okay. So, and like one of the people sort of did like a little bit of a crosswalk of what they already had started to compile here, 4 towns data versus what was in this sample Mars report. And so like, there's like a lot more historical data. Anyway, the context for all of this was like an email was sent from Lynn Griesmer to the superintendent, and so and also the chair of the regional school committee. And the sort of gist of the email was, hey, last time we spoke about this, you had mentioned that Mars was going to be working on this report and that there was going to be you know, a request to share the cost of this report, because obviously Marge is not doing this for free, among the 4 towns. And I think there was some confusion about what that cost was, and it turns out it was a larger cost. Like instead of, I think, 800 and some dollars, it turns out it's more like $3,200. And so I think the group, I wasn't actually at this meeting, I was on vacation last week, but apparently I think the sort of the sentiment of this 4 towns group was, you know, we're not totally comfortable like paying for this when we're already doing a similar process that actually is going to be significantly more information and more comprehensive. And I think the email, I think, was attempting to say, like, in the interest of like sort of successful collaboration, you know, like we think we can bring a lot of this information to our first meeting, which, by the way, is not on the 11th. I think that was a date that had been circulated before. Turns out the superintendent is not available then, so it's going to be on the 18th. Anyway, long story short, the superintendent responded, and it was clear that she was upset about the email, and I think she felt like it was. I'm actually going to pull the email. Let me first forward this while I have it here. I'm going to forward that Menden sample report. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. All right, so it's greetings, 4 towns group. I must admit I was taken aback by the beginning of your email and would appreciate some clarity around its intent. From my perspective, it reflects a significant breakdown in communication and a missed opportunity to seek clarification before taking action. Once that action was taken, the message seems to shift towards issuing directives rather than engaging collaboratively. So there's some discussion about the cost, that clearly there was a breakdown, some miscommunication about what the cost was. The goal of this work is truly to move forward toward a sustainable and equitable solution for our shared school systems. Then I ask that we remain grounded in collaboration and transparency. At present, the tone and framing of recent communication do not reflect that shared spirit. I would also respectfully request that we schedule a brief reconnect prior to August 18th. I will not walk into a meeting to be blindsided or to navigate misaligned understandings in real time. A short conversation in advance will go a long way in ensuring our continued partnership is built on mutual trust, clarity, and respect. So anyway, I think I've been sort of concerned about I think there's a lot of history that sort of informs kind of how this is perceived. I don't know what else to say other than the group is going to meet on the 18th. It's not going to be a large open meeting that like all 4 towns are invited to, because I think the thought was that we're not kind of ready to do that. So it's going to be a meeting with this 4 towns kind of informal sort of advisory group that has been meeting. That from Shutesbury, that includes Melissa from the select board, myself, Rita has been participating in some of them, Haley. I may rope Susie in, just given her engagement in school issues. And anyway, we are going to meet on the 18th with the superintendent and the regional school committee. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I do know that like a lot of this data that that I think some people are working on and are compiling is going to be shared at that meeting. And I think there's probably going to be a conversation about how do we want to proceed this year, and kind of what is this group going to work on, and how are they going to work together with the superintendent and the regional school committee. And I don't know how it's going to go, but I mean, I think that's kind of where things stand right now. At some point, I don't know when that is, the idea is that, this is going to, there's going to be a larger, more like representative group that is going to sort of take on this work that I think, as I mentioned at a previous meeting, will consist of at least 5 representatives from each town. Anyway, that's some of the updates I have. George.
Is this group subject to open meeting law?
No.
So that's why Lynn can send memos around outside of meetings.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
That's tough. For me, if they're going to put together this data and compile this data, they really need to, I would ask you to ask the group, before we even get this data, how are we going to use it? And you did allude to that. I heard you allude to that, but an environment like this, what I fear will happen is people are going to see the data and everybody's going to load up their guns with the data. Look at the excess levy capacity in that town. Look at the cash reserves in that town. And people are going to start, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm not predicting, but I can see without a mediator with, real authority to control these conversations, I fear that the data is just going to be used. Historically, it's, I guess maybe I'm shell shocked from my experience 10 years ago, but I see the towns end up not cooperating and end up, it creates divides. And I think everybody wants to avoid that. So I think it's really important to set some kind of limits or boundaries about how this data is used and how it should not be used. My 2 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
April?
I have 12 cents. I had thought that the consultant was going to act as a mediator, because in these last, go-arounds around regionalization and all of this stuff that has been happening over the last decade, that really would have been helpful to have somebody mediate that. And I'm not sure if that's the charge of this organization.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is I kind of thought that too. And I actually think that would have been a more useful role for Mars to play than this data gathering sort of exercise. Because I think as has been discussed, there's nothing particularly special about the actual data that's being pulled by Mars. So I would rather, like, to the extent that they're going to be, contracted to provide a service that the district is going to pay for, I think, more of a facilitator role would have been a better role for them, assuming that that's something they do, which I have to think they do, but I don't know. I'm going to push for that. Whether it's them or I don't know who else, but somebody from the Donahue Institute or something. I'm not sure who, but some independent party that's not like a representative of one of the towns, but we'll see. Susie?
Let's see, you asked us to send in some questions as a result of reading what was put out by the task force. And in looking over that memo, I feel like they're, first of all, getting the data really carefully so it's apples to apples is something I don't really know how well an outside group can do that, or even an inside group. So I hope that some of the questions we wrote in will be addressed. in this process, and the data will be gathered to meet those questions. So we're talking facts, not feelings. I know that George did, I think, at least 2 summer investigations. Summer is a breakdown time. People are not around. It's very hard to pull it off in the summer. So it doesn't surprise me that there was a breakdown in communication. That's the nature of starting something in the summer. But that it generates bad feelings, that's too bad. And it's also maybe important to appreciate all the ongoing issues the region is working on. So how the data is recorded and analyzed, I feel if Mars did it and they made a mistake, then I would be feeling differently than if some volunteer from the from the task force did that and get into sort of the nitty gritty with them. But I know, like I'm looking at this, I don't see the charter, this particular list. Charter costs are an issue to me, and I bet they divide up by towns differently because some parents will drive their kids there, some parents won't. So I also know that new growth is probably, they think it's in this chart somewhere, but Shutesbury will never have the kind of new growth opportunities that Amherst does. So weighing factors like that seem really important to me. And I don't know whether an inside or outside group will figure out how those factors weigh, because like George said, people are going to seize on something and say, you have all this money. Well, we don't have new growth. Rah, rah, rah. I can see this discussion
Yeah.
spiraling.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that at least the data will be solid enough for us to refer to it, that it won't just be used as ammunition, and that somebody puts thought into it beyond sort of the obvious categories that DESE ends up compiling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess my thought, Susie, is that like the sort of more obvious categories are kind of a foundation to sort of build off, right? Like we have to sort of start somewhere, and at least this is my perspective. The reality is that this as 4 towns, we've been working on, you know, the regional budget since the region has existed, and there's really no real information sharing that has happened between the 4 towns, at least as long as I've been on the finance committee, right? There's in our 4 towns meetings, right? The only data we ever see is a budget basically from the region, and you know, but we never so you know, I think the process of sort of having a kind of shared common data set that all 4 towns see, can respond to, have access to, and at least to the best extent possible, includes sort of apples to apples kinds of comparisons. That's the goal, at least. You know, we start with something that's going to be kind of cruder and more simple, but like through the process of meeting and discussing and reacting to that data, some of the nuance that you're talking about gets added into that and gets contributed, and that's what's good. That's what it's going to take, I think, is people like us looking at this data really carefully, not just like passively consuming it, but like actually asking the follow-up questions that I know you've already started to draw up. So
yeah, so if the energy is that we discover together
yeah,
what the data is telling us and what we need to know and what it means to all of us, then we'll get somewhere.
yeah.
But I think it's a pretty complicated picture, and people need to sort of hold open the idea that we're discovering this together.
Right. Yes. And I think, to speak to a kind of earlier point George made, I think there's sort of 2 ways that this can really kind of go off rails. One would be the one that George stated, which is that this becomes just ammunition for towns to sort of advocate for a position that's advantageous to them, to their fiscal circumstances, and it just becomes a way for them to say, well, town, A and B should be doing more of this because you have this. So that is one way I think this can go badly. I think the other way is that it could be like the focus could be then sort of pointed towards the regional school committee, and there could be a lot of discussion of, well, you guys aren't doing an effective job sort of managing the district, and you're spending money in in imprudent ways, and so like, and in both scenarios, I think what happens is like people sort of have the like predetermined like positions that like they're going into. It's not this process of discovery that Susie's describing, but it's more like people have a kind of predetermined view, like, the district spends way too much money relative to other districts, and so I'm just going to look for ammunition to support that position. So or like, well, we're the only town that doesn't have excess levy capacity. All the other towns have excess levy capacity. Why do they have excess levy? Because they should be using that to fund the schools. So like I think we're going to have to just be, I think, aware of that potential and sort of be pushing people to like not just focus on these sort of predetermined conclusions. And
What was
actually,
what,
Yep.
that's
what
gonna
was
be
the
hard.
second concern you raised? The first concern was that they'd use the data against us. What was the second
The
one?
second concern was just that, like, like I'm not going to mention names here, but like I just know that there are people who, we hear them at the Four Towns meeting, right, who are convinced that Amherst overspends on education, right? That we are maybe the better way to say is that we are our district is an outlier in terms of the amount it spends on on education relative to Northampton or Longmeadow. We hear it at the Four Towns.
Right,
People say,
right.
well, I pulled this data down from the DESI report, and their per pupil cost is this, and why is ours $10,000 more per student? That must mean we're not spending wisely or appropriately. So like that kind of a conclusion that people have already drawn and come into this process and just use this as a way to just sort of, I don't know, defend that position.
Well, this is exactly why it needs to be mediated.
Yeah,
Because
Yes.
this is like family therapy
Right.
in some ways.
Yeah.
And you really need somebody neutral. That the other challenge will be that neutral person has to be agreed upon by other, that everybody buys into
Yeah.
that.
That has credibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
Susie?
And George, wasn't there a time where somebody laid out, I think it was about regionalization. And so they brought in an outside group and they did a lot of charts and pictures. And I think in the end, nobody paid any attention to it. So, I don't know whether they had a goal in mind. But, having a neutral party, they they have to have careful instructions about what they're doing.
Yes.
Because that whole group had a ton of not information, and it ended up just snowballing into no.
Well, I think one, you might be thinking of this, one of the assessment groups that I was on, we hired somebody, yes, to compile information. He wasn't really a mediator, so he kept his head down when the accusation, when the arguments started. But he did bring in some options and some ideas on how to assess the budget to the four towns, and ultimately, yeah, none of his ideas were satisfactory to the majority, and we ended up coming up with our own thing, which I think is pretty good. It's what we're doing now.
Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you can kind of collect, data ad nauseum, kind of aspect. So it seems like there's a piece of like, trying to reach like what are the shared values or like what are the shared principles, types of things that then inform, like if you don't know what it is you're looking for, like then what is the scope of the data? Like having, 20 years of data on these particular topics, may not be relevant if that's not answering the question that we need answered. So yeah, I think like better trying to scope what the problem is we're trying to solve, so everybody's on the same page for that, is a helpful piece of it.
Yeah. Great. All right. So I'm just making a note for myself. So I think I'm going to reach out I already have to call Lynn Griesmer to find out, because as I read to you in that email, the superintendent wants to have a check-in before this 18th meeting. So I was going to follow up with Lynn to see if that, because I haven't seen any mention of a date. And I think I'm going to also sort of press on the need, or what we view as a need for a mediator or facilitator for this process. Okay. Any other questions, or Susie?
I would like to know if you got other feedback from other people on our FinCom, and I want to know if the committee is getting that feedback, because all that feedback shows is we're trying to think about it, and they can know what we don't understand or what we are concerned about it now. They don't have to answer the question. They have to understand what we're thinking about.
Yeah. So I just have the list that you shared, Susie. I haven't received any other questions or responses or suggestions to the draft memo. What I'll do is, if it's okay with you, Susie, I'm going to forward your list to the rest of the committee, and that may sort of prompt some thinking about it. And I'll include the original memo as well as part of that. And depending on, well, let's see. I was just wondering if we're going to meet again before the 18th. Probably not, right? Because that would be less than 2 weeks, but okay. But yeah, if folks have, like, you'll see from Susie's list that some of them are like very specific kinds of questions, and then in other cases they're sort of pretty big issues, sort of almost like kind of new kind of categories of information that that this group ought to consider.
Are you going to send that to the task force? That's who I was thinking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. I'll see if I get some more feedback from the rest of our group, but I will share that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, here we are.
Anybody else have anything on the ARPS group? Okay. I think next up is so anything on onboarding. I know some of these onboarding sessions have started. I just want to sort of see how that that process is going. And anybody actually have one of their sessions? I think at least one of us have.
Susie did.
Susie? Yeah.
I haven't, but I'll send an email to Molly and Laura in the next day or two, and we'll find a time.
Okay.
And then I'll bring the annual report and the budget, and we'll meet at town hall.
As I will as well.
Okay.
Too much fun.
Well, it's summertime.
Yeah.
But I was also waiting for us to meet Molly and have this conversation, so that Molly's aware.
Yeah. So I filled in Molly about sort of the kind of proposed process of doing these onboarding sessions. So, okay, and I'm gonna. So I offered to do one on sort of regional school finance, And I think for lots of reasons, it makes sense to wait until after August 18th to do that. But I will schedule something either in August or maybe more likely in September. Okay. I think next up, we were going to assign liaisons for each of the departments. And I think I can't remember, Laura, if we talked about this at our last meeting, but for both you and Molly, this is a role that we've had for the last couple of fiscal years, where we have one member of the FinCom essentially volunteer to serve as a liaison to a department, and that person becomes sort of like a point of contact for that department head. The liaison also sort of updates them on process. So like, how's your budget going? Or do you have questions about it? Any problems? And it also becomes like, if we as a FinCom have a follow-up question for a department head, the sort of logical person to bring that question to the department head is the liaison. So we, I believe, have had 6 people. So we have a liaison for the highway department, the elementary school, the regional school district, the fire department, the police department, and the fiscal team, which consists of the treasurer, the accountant, and the collector. I don't think I'm missing anybody. So I guess maybe the way I'll do this is I'll see if anybody wants to kind of volunteer to serve as a liaison to any of those departments. And this could be for the members that are just carrying over, like if you're particularly keen on continuing to sort of serve in that capacity, you can let me know. So does anybody want to get the ball rolling and volunteer for a particular department?
Well, I was thinking I'd fill in for Bob on the highway.
Okay. All right.
And
So
I'll
anybody?
stay with the elementary school.
All right. So George is volunteering for highway. Susie carrying on as our elementary school. Anybody else particularly keen on one of those?
Yeah, I would like to continue with the police.
Okay.
Because that's fun.
All right. So April police, Susie elementary school, George highway. So I guess one question is, was anybody particularly keen on one of those roles?
Mhm.
All right. So that leaves, I probably would like to stay on as the regional school liaison, just because I kind of follow those issues pretty closely and been part of this group. So unless somebody else is keen on taking that over, I'll volunteer to carry over there. That leaves fire and fiscal team.
I'll take either. I don't have a preference.
Okay. Laura, do you have an interest in either of those?
I mean, I'm fine with either. I mean, fiscal would be, just to make it easier, I could pick that one.
Okay, sure. All right. So what about Molly for fire department and Laura for the fiscal team?
What about Jim?
Yeah, we don't have one for
Oh
Jim.
yeah, Jim, we need to, yeah.
I think we need to wait to find out what's going to happen to Jim.
Okay, got it. All right. All right. Well, let's see what's happening with Jim, and there'll be plenty of roles. One of the things that will undoubtedly happen this year is there'll be like another group formed, like maybe a contract negotiating group, for example, and they'll need a FinCom representative. So there'll be opportunities.
We're working
Yeah.
on it.
So should I like reach out then to the fire department, or do I wait until the
Yeah.
budget season kind of starts and then
Yeah,
tell them
what-
who I am, or?
Yeah, I think what you ought to do is, so we are going to draft a letter and a budget form, a blank budget form for each of the departments that will probably go out in early October, if memory serves. Does that sound right?
Yeah, roughly.
So
I think we send it out earlier than that.
okay, in September with an October, end of October deadline, maybe something like that.
Let me look.
That
Okay.
sounds right.
All right. So what I would say, Molly, is that you're probably going to want to wait for that letter to go out, and then a sort of good opportunity to introduce yourself and say, hey, by the way, you've probably seen this letter and the form. Let me know if you have questions about it. The form will likely have their FY 26 budget sort of pre-populated. And one of the things we're going to want to make sure is that folks actually use the form that we're going to be sending to them, because it's very helpful for us to actually be able to see what their proposed FY 27 amounts are compared to their current FY 26 amounts. So, anyway. So yeah, I don't think you don't need to do anything immediately, but around the time that letter goes out.
We asked them to have it to us by the end of October. And so I think we sent it out in the beginning of September.
Okay.
I know we met at a meeting in August, the end of August, and drafted it. So I think we got it out in September sometime.
Got it. Okay.
So AJ,
Yep.
question.
Go
So
ahead.
for the minutes, we've got the elementary school, the highway, the fiscal team, the regional school, the fire department, and the police department. And so Laura's fiscal team, I'm highway, your region, Susie's elementary, Molly's fire, and April's police.
Correct.
Okay. And then do we need to have a vote on each of these, or is this just
I don't think so.
okay?
I
So
don't-
just these are the assignments. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
And my other question, my final question is, should we have somebody who's a liaison with the library?
yeah, so this is, I mean, I'm not sure why we haven't. This actually came up because Molly, before last meeting, Molly had sent me an email saying, given my work, it might make sense for me to be the liaison to the library. And then I was like, we don't actually have a liaison for the library. And I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah, remember in fiscal
anybody-
20,
Yeah, does anybody have any memory as to why we don't?
Isn't it because they have their own trustees and they're sort of a more separate entity? I think that may be the rationale over the years, but I
but
think
that's
it'd
no
be a-
reason not to have a,
Exactly.
right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we can make the decision to have one and appoint somebody.
Well, and we know we had a problem one year because we didn't have a liaison to that department, and we ended up having to go to special town meeting and increase their budget because of a communication issue.
Yeah, and
No,
I
that's-
know all about the MAR, the MAR already, and the MER and all the things that libraries have to do.
Yeah. All right. So
I think we should have Molly be the liaison also to the library.
okay.
Keep track of it.
And let's ask Jim Walton if he wants to do fire department.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, let's do that. Does that sound good, Molly?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think the library is going to be a very heavy lift, so if you need me to do both of them, that's fine too.
Okay. So let's see how Jim's doing, and then we'll decide.
Because Laura also is doing capital planning, as is George, and April's doing personnel. So
Yeah. Okay. So sorry, I'm just updating mine. And so Molly's gonna be on library, and what did we say? Jim's gonna be on fire, potentially. Okay. All right, got it. Okay. So I think we got all of our assignments sorted out. I don't have anything else. Any other updates or business that folks need to discuss tonight?
Well, just a committee update. The Personnel Board is working with Haley at this point to go over the draft proposed Personnel Board personnel policies. And that's meeting is starting on this Thursday. We're going to, the plan is to have our edits completed by September 1st.
Yay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Awesome.
good luck.
Okay.
It's
I know. Thank you.
been
It's-
going on for a long time.
Well, yeah, I think, the issues around the composition of hiring and contracting is very central, and that has not, it's in flux, or it's being discussed.
Good, that's great.
I hope so.
Susie.
We talked, I proposed that we consider having 3 meetings in person over the course of the year, because I feel like people to people is an important piece.
Yeah.
That would be like September, December, and March, something like that. We can consider it. We don't have to decide tonight, but I want to continue to bring that up.
Yeah.
The technological challenges are there, but we might be pioneers at solving them in yet another way.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that I can report on is that the school, the elementary school, was having a pretty big problem with their boiler gumming up, which meant water was getting into the boiler fuel and gumming up the nozzle. They spent $16,000 with Jamrog, which Ann McGill called Jamrog in and sat down and went over what that whole process was, because that was an inordinate amount of spending.
Mhm.
They also tested the tank. The tank is not leaking in water. Frank McGinn figured out that when they re-roofed it, they didn't put the cap on the vent pipe that goes down into the boiler. And so water was getting in there. So they figured that out. They have a temporary solution. They can't do the solution themselves because it would violate the warranty on the roof. They're talking with a roofing company. But the news that it's not time to dig the tank up and put in a new tank in a different way was a great relief. And what I saw in the meeting with the school committee was how much Ann McGill put into figuring this out and working with the different people, and how much cooperation there was, and the great relief they all had to get to the answer. For that $16,000 worth of late invoices, the school used some of its unspent circuit breaker money, which would go back to the state if they didn't use it. And they also used money out of school choice, which is not the best choice, but they felt like that was a way to solve this particular problem. There was some talk about just firing Jamrog, but I feel like Ann went down a different path and sat and talked with them. It's like, look at what happened, and look at how much it cost, and look at how many people came, and look at the travel time we were time. So I don't know who the town's plumbers are right at the moment. But what I saw is that those people, the building committee and the school and the superintendent and the financial director all worked to solve the problems the best they could. And there was a pretty clear awareness that this town has been having a difficult year, and they figured out a financial solution for the 16,000.
Great.
What was the 16,000 specifically for?
For Jamrog, for all the times they came to ungum up the nozzle and get hot water turned back on at the school.
Okay, thank you.
One question I had, I don't know if anybody here has an answer, is if there's an update on what the plan is around the police department leadership and what the sort of financial impact of that might be.
What I understand, is that they're putting out an ad for a new police chief.
Okay.
That they're also asking the personnel board to look at have recommendations on an application form that everybody would fill out in addition to their resume. And as I understand it, there's going to be a search committee formed.
All right, well then that answers, because I guess I had been wondering if there was, if it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to be hiring a police chief, because I feel like I had heard some discussion that there were different sort of options for staffing the department, but it sounds like that's the direction that we're in. Okay, well, all right, because I was wondering, well, maybe there's some savings there that we could tap into for this insurance shortfall, but doesn't sound like it. Okay. Any other updates? Yeah. No. Okay, we should make a plan for our next meeting and then we can adjourn. So I was wondering if the 26th might be a good option for folks.
Well,
We can do that.
we want to we have to make our proposal of how to pay.
Oh yeah, so let's work backwards from that. So the warrants need to be posted. What was the date you said? September?
September 9th.
Okay. So
Can we have an estimate of what that increase will be by then, by August 26th?
I also think the select board should be made where that is Rosh Hashanah falls right in the middle of that.
Yes.
The 22nd to the 24th.
I could send that note to Haley and the select board.
okay.
And also, I also liked Nettie's proposal to have the meeting on a Saturday. I don't know if we want to make a recommendation as a committee to support that. It sounds like that was not really the direction people wanted to go. But it would open up, it's the whole idea of bringing younger people into the fold.
And also the 19th is our regularly next scheduled one, and we are balancing with select board. So the 26th would be the select board's
Okay.
next
Okay.
meeting.
So the question is are we going to have, so if we met on the 19th in 2 weeks, that, well, we'll have an update on this school sustainability group because they will have met on the 18th. But do we think we'll have some plan or some the information we need to make a decision about the insurance trust? I guess we don't really know.
We have to.
We're gonna have to then. All right. So what about meeting on the 19th then? In 2 weeks.
I have something that's every other Tuesday.
Mhm.
That is that
Okay.
Tuesday. I don't know.
So is that is that just an ongoing commitment that you'll have like for the future? Yeah, it's like a standing.
Yeah, like I'm missing it tonight.
All right.
And we have to coordinate with the select board to switch it. And this might be a time that works. They
Yeah.
also probably work off of the warrant
Mhm.
schedule.
Okay. So I think there are two options. One is we can try to, swap the sort of dates with the select board for the future, maybe not for this next meeting, so that the so that we don't have this conflict for Molly. I guess the other suggestion is we could move our our standard meeting night. Doesn't have to be Tuesday. It's just what it's been. But I don't know if other people have sort of built their schedules around that.
I'm flexible.
Personnel board meets Thursdays, generally the third Thursday of the month.
Mhm.
We're meeting a little more frequently right now, but
assessors meet on Wednesdays.
Right.
All right.
But, you know, we could, once we know the FinCom schedule, we could probably work around that with the assessors because we don't meet that frequently.
No, we could maybe do that on Tuesdays. Oh, but Wednesdays are bad for me. I work.
Okay,
That's
so
that
Wednes-
work. I work into the evening, and
all right, so Wednesdays are not a good option.
I could do it. I'm done usually by 6, so I'm free at 6:30.
I have a
But
conflict the first Wednesday of every month.
okay, good.
What about Mondays?
Monday.
You're gonna break into song there, April?
No.
I'm flexible. Monday would probably be okay.
I could do Mondays.
I mean, generally speaking, would Mondays work for people?
Yes.
Yep.
So what if we met on the 18th?
Nope, that's the four-town meeting.
But I don't know that I don't know that they have
Board
a
town meeting is,
No, that's your meeting with
The
the
task.
oh, yeah,
task
yeah.
force.
Yeah, the task
We
force.
can meet during the
Sustainability
day,
group.
like in the morning. So it's possible that I think since this is not the larger meeting that will be happening in the future, that I think it's probably likely that will be during the day.
Oh,
So yeah, I think we could potentially do Monday at 6:30.
Okay. And if we could still be alternating with the select board, so that, because I'd like to have Haley attend our meetings too.
Yes,
Right. Yes.
that's important.
Yeah.
All
Which-
right.
so I'm gonna have to talk to my community. We've been having Monday night dinners for the last
Oh,
48
right.
years.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right. I forgot
oh,
about that.
We can
shoot.
maybe move it to a different night. I don't know yet, and that could be the way it is, because I wouldn't miss all of them. I just miss some of them.
Yeah.
Mm,
That's okay.
George? Yeah.
Yeah, so I hate to go back to something we thought we had done, but hearing what April just said, and I was thinking about it earlier anyways, I forgot to raise when we talk about liaisons. I think one of the liaisons that we've really been weak about is a liaison to the select board. And I think
Oh, wow.
that's naturally Haley's role.
Yeah.
And I think we need to talk to Haley, and I would recommend that we talk to Haley and ask her when she's at select board meetings to take notes that she thinks should be presented that would inform us about things that they're talking about that could eventually reach us.
Yeah.
Kind of
And
give us a heads up. It's something I asked Becky to do kind of like last year, but there was a lot going on. And I just talked to her about it briefly, and Becky thought it was a good idea, but then, things kind of unraveled there. But that's something I just wanted to mention. And maybe the next time we meet with her, I won't necessarily put this in the minutes, AJ, but you might want to ask her, or however you want to go about it, whatever. But I just think it would be a good when we
I
do
like the
committee
idea.
reports.
And then that becomes just like a standing agenda item, is like, updates from the select board that
Yeah, it's
Haley
almost
could just plan on, sharing whenever she attends.
yeah. And actually, and maybe it's not the liaison role, but it's the department. It's like April on the personnel board and Susie on this school committee giving reports about what's going on with those committees, and maybe Haley can just give us a report.
Yeah. All right.
I like
So I think that's a good idea. I'm kind of getting back to the sort of meeting schedule. Now I'm starting to think what we maybe should do is just go ahead and meet on the 19th, but try to get for meetings beyond the 19th, try to get on a schedule that we can essentially swap with the select board, so that that our regular meeting night becomes the Tuesdays that Molly can attend, where she doesn't have this other conflict.
I like that.
It'd help if you write down the dates, Molly, so we start working on a real number.
Yeah. Is it,
I will double check. I mean, I know,
Okay.
yeah, every once in a while it gets,
shoot me,
Okay.
shoot me an email. And so I think what it'll probably mean for the 19th, we won't have you, but we'll hopefully for meeting beyond that, we'll get on a schedule where we meet on Tuesday nights that don't conflict with your standing every other
Okay,
week.
so the next meeting of this group is the 19th.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, it just looks like there are just too many complications with the other, picking another night. Does that seem to make sense to folks? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else?
So I'm gonna get that information from Becky and then I'll also let the select board know about the conflict with the Jewish holiday. And I'll send that to you. It's okay to send information, just not ask for opinions.
I could take on letting the select board know. You don't have to do everything. Let me
Okay,
just
well,
let them know.
I'll do the other one then.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm gonna touch base with Rita and Haley about sort of end of year transfers, like kind of getting back to our old process of doing joint meetings. And I'm also going to contact Lynn just to find out if there's going to be a meeting with the superintendent before the 18th. Susie, I'll let you know when that's going to.
Maybe I should check with Ryan if it's actually possible for the town not to have the special town meeting before October 1st. If there's a way to look at that in a bookkeeping way that doesn't force us into that box.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they thought about that.
Yeah,
Well,
that's right, because
Ask Ryan.
we've got enough funds. If they raised it, we'd have enough funds to get through probably March.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have to pay the bill all at once.
Right.
Okay, I'll check with Ryan on that.
Okay. All right. So I think I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right. George,
Overnight aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosher, aye.
Moss eye.
Boito, aye.
Stein eye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
Have a
you, and have a
good
good
one.
night, everyone.
All right. Good night.
Right.
good night.